Girl annealing tactics in the 1900s seems to be a phrase that could refer to social strategies, practices, or cultural expectations surrounding young women during that period. Let's break down what might be meant by this in various contexts. 1. Social expectations and gender roles. In the early 1900s, societal expectations for young women were heavily influenced by traditional gender roles. Women were generally expected to focus on homemaking, child-rearing, and supporting their husbands. Education for girls was often limited, with a stronger emphasis on domestic skills rather than professional or academic achievements. Social norms dictated behavior, appearance, and the types of activities deemed appropriate for girls. For example, etiquette, modesty, and deference to male authority were highly valued traits. 2. Courtship and marriage. Tactics or strategies for young women during the courtship process involved presenting themselves as desirable wives. This included mastering domestic skills, demonstrating good manners, and adhering to societal standards of beauty and modesty. Courtship rituals were formal, often involving chaperoned visits and a strong emphasis on propriety. Parental approval was typically essential for any romantic relationship. Marriage was often viewed as a primary goal for young women, with significant pressure to marry well and maintain social status. 3. Education and employment. The early 1900s saw the beginnings of change regarding women's education and employment. While opportunities were still limited compared to those available to men, more women began to pursue higher education and professional careers. Tactics for young women seeking education or employment included navigating societal resistance and often having to balance traditional domestic expectations with their professional ambitions. 4. Women's suffrage and social change. The women's suffrage movement was gaining momentum in the early 1900s, with women fighting for the right to vote and greater equality. Activism and involvement in social causes became more prominent tactics for achieving these goals. Organizations such as the National American Woman Suffrage Association, NAXA, and later the National Woman's Party, NWP, played crucial roles in advocating for women's rights. Young women who participated in these movements employed tactics such as organizing rallies, protests, and engaging in civil disobedience. 5. Fashion and public image. Fashion in the early 1900s was also a significant aspect of how young women presented themselves. The Edwardian era, 1901 to 1910, featured elaborate, modest clothing styles, which slowly evolved into the more practical and less restrictive fashions of the 1920s. Young women used fashion as a tactic to navigate societal expectations and express personal identity within the constraints of the time. In summary, girl annealing tactics in the 1900s would encompass a range of strategies that young women employed to navigate the societal norms, expectations, and limitations of the era. These tactics varied widely depending on social class, geographic location, and personal aspirations, but collectively they reflect the complex interplay between traditional roles and emerging opportunities for women during this transformative period.